Hi, I'm Martin Asch, also known as Daddy and Dad and Zadie. And I've been thinking of doing this for some time. In 2 weeks, today is August 25th, August 25th, 2005. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be 80 years old. And I know that people don't live forever. So I thought my posterity, my kids, my grandkids, great-grandchildren perhaps, will have a chance to see what their dad and Zadie was like as the years go by. So I'm going to do this in several sessions, but today I'm going to start with my early life. I was born on September 8, 1925 in Chicago, Illinois, and I grew up in Chicago. My mom was Pearl Abramowitz, or her maiden name was Abramowitz, and my father was Jacob Ashkenazi. He changed his name to Asch while I was a young child. My father was born in Kobrin, which was on the border between the Soviet Union, or Russia at the time, and Poland. I know my dad spoke Polish well, and my mom was born in Chicago, Illinois on May 1st, 1906. I grew up in Chicago, attended the Chicago public schools. We lived in the Humboldt Park area of Chicago, and I attended Lowell Grammar School from 1st to 8th grade. And I attended Thule High School in Chicago. And then when I graduated Thule High School, that was in, graduated grade school in 1939. Attended Thule High School for 4 years. That was on Claremont Avenue, one block east of Western Avenue. And then I graduated from Thule High School in 1943. In June 1943, I was the second man in the class. I was the salutatorian. I remember the valedictorian was Julius Newman. Interesting that we both became doctors. We both attended medical school at the University of Illinois. I was a good student. I enjoyed math and science. English always was difficult. I never was a writer, but my mind went to mathematics and science. I debated whether to go to study physics and become a scientist or go into medicine. My father encouraged me to study medicine because he said, as a Jewish young man, you'll be better off working for yourself. At that time, especially in the 1930s while growing up, there was a lot of anti-Semitism. Hitler in Germany was riding strong. The United States was largely isolationist, that is, following President George Washington's advice, avoid foreign entanglements. And the Jewish people had a hard time in the 1930s. There was a lot of discrimination. I remember I applied for a job while in high school with the Illinois Telephone Company, and they told me it was a waste of time, and it was. In Chicago public schools, I got an excellent education. We had good teachers, and they weren't afraid to flunk you if you didn't measure up. And so after graduating from high school in June 1943, World War II was on. I attended the summer session, summer of 1943, the summer session at the University of Illinois as a freshman. And I enlisted in the Army in July 1943. That gave me an opportunity to enrolled in what they called ASTP, Army Specialized Training Program, which gave you an opportunity to go to college and study engineering. The Army had a great need for engineers. So after my freshman semester during the summer of 1943, I entered the United States Army and was sent to Fort Benning, Georgia for basic training. While we were in basic training program, while we were in basic training, the Army Specialized Training Program was terminated and we were transferred into the infantry. And I joined the 86th Black Hawk Division. Well, that was a hard time in the United States Army. After I got out of the Army, I returned to the University of Illinois and finished the requirements for medical school. I was a good student and I was able to finish 62 semester hours in 3 semesters. I got a lot of credit by simply passing the examination. I remember I passed the exam in psychology for 4 units, and I also got credit for chemistry, 5 semester hours, by simply passing the initial exam when I enrolled. I lived at home while I attended medical school in Chicago, and that was hard work. I also had to work nights as in what they called an extern, where you worked nights like every 3rd night in the hospitals and got paid. I remember we got paid $9 a night, which those days was good money. Well, I was in senior year in high school. I remember working for the United States Post Office, where they were paying 65 cents an hour. And before that, I had a job at a restaurant and supermarket. They called it Stop and Shop, and they paid all 29 cents an hour. So you can see money wasn't too loose. Well, I finally got a car after, let's see, in 1949. I got a 1949 Plymouth, a black Plymouth. And that was after, let's see, in 1949. I graduated from medical school in 1949, so I think that was while I was out of medical school. I interned at a small hospital in Chicago called Garfield Park Community Hospital, because I had actually thought I would go into general practice initially, and this was a good hospital for GPs. But after I completed my internship, I did not really feel like I was competent to practice medicine. I really knew how to write a good exam, but I did not know really the practical things that one should know. So I decided I would specialize in pediatrics. Being a poor kid without much money, I chose pediatric because we had an excellent pediatric program at the University of Illinois, and the residency required only 2 years of postgraduate training. My first choice was actually ophthalmology. However, in order to get a residency in ophthalmology, that is diseases of the eye, at the Illinois Eye and Ear Infirmary, which was a wonderful top place, they required a 1 year of basic science study in ophthalmology, and that 1 year cost $1,000 to enroll, and I just did not have $1,000. So as a second choice, I decided to specialize in pediatrics. And looking through the AMA, American Medical Association directory, I found a residency at the Children's Hospital in San Francisco. And San Francisco appealed to me because my brother Albert was working in San Francisco for the Pacific Fire Rating Bureau. My brother Albert got a degree in engineering and fire protection engineering from the Illinois Institute of Technology, and that's how he got the job in San Francisco. And the reason he was interested in San Francisco is because his brother-in-law, Sam Rubenstein, later changed his name to Roland, R-O-L-A-N-D, also graduated at the University of Illinois, had moved to Sunnyvale, California to practice general practice in Sunnyvale. So that led to my brother Albert moving to San Francisco, and I followed him to California as well. In my family, I had my brother Albert, who was born in 1928, and my sister Beverly was born in February of 24th, 1933. That was the year of the World's Fair in Chicago. And we had a good family life. My dad and my mother and my brother and sister, we used to go to Lincoln Park in Chicago and go to Cermak Park in Chicago. It's in a suburb of Chicago named after Mayor Cermak, who was assassinated in 1933. The gunman had aimed for President Roosevelt and missed and killed the mayor. So Cermak Park was named for Mayor Cermak in Chicago. We used to go up to along the Fox River. There were various forest preserves, they called them, in the Chicago area, where we would go picnic. The various synagogues would have picnics on Sunday, where they would sell soda pop and sweet corn and sandwiches and raise money for the shul. And my dad was a pinochle player. He enjoyed playing pinochle. My dad worked most of his life as an insurance agent for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. And I can remember keeping him company when he would go around his, what they called a debit, his territory, collecting premiums, like 25 cents a week on what they called industrial insurance, and keeping him company. And my dad was very interested in me having a good Jewish education. So my dad would often pick me up in the evening at Hebrew school, and I really appreciated the good education I received. I finished the Central Hebrew High School in Chicago, and I actually attended 1 or 2 years at the College of Jewish Studies in Chicago. And even after all these years, I can still speak Hebrew well and understand Hebrew, read Hebrew, and have a good understanding of the Jewish religion.